For centuries, the world known as Epsilon 17 lay untouched at the fringes of galactic maps. Long ago, it had been marked as a failed terraforming project, written off after a massive solar flare fried any hope of life sustaining on its surface. No one visited, no one watched. It was forgotten by almost everyone. Until the signal came. It started as a whisper, an irregular pulse detected by the Luminar Crest, a Centauri science vessel on a routine scan for mineral-rich anomalies. At first, the crew thought it was interference, the kind that happens when too much static rolls through a system. But then the pattern repeated. 3 long pulses, 2 short, a pause, and then a hum. Not natural. Not random. Captain Varel, a calm and curious Centauri known for trusting her instincts, ordered a course correction. The crew, though skeptical, followed orders. They were explorers after all, and explorers followed the unknown. As the ship neared the planet, strange things started to happen. Scanners malfunctioned, as if being jammed, but not aggressively. It felt more like resistance, a slow fog over the instruments. Visuals cleared only when they broke through the upper atmosphere, and what they saw took every voice to silence. Below them was a living world. Lush green valleys stretched for miles, broken by towering cliffs and winding rivers that shimmered with soft bioluminescence. In the heart of the largest forest stood something impossible. A city. But not one built with concrete or steel. This was something else. Towers shaped from growing trees spiraled into the sky, their trunks intertwined with crystal panels that caught the sunlight and scattered it like rainbows. The roads glowed faintly under their ship's sensors, pulsing with a strange natural energy. Everything was alive, and everything was human. "Is this a forward Earth base?" one of the analysts asked, his voice tight with disbelief. "No," Varel replied softly. "This is something much older." There were no docking ports, no spaceports, no satellites, just an ancient signal that continued to pulse upward like a heartbeat waiting to be heard. The ship landed on a clearing just outside the city, where the forest had made space for them, almost intentionally. The ground was smooth, flat, and welcoming. Then they saw them. People. Humans. Dozens of them walked through the trees toward the ship. They were tall, their clothing simple but elegant, woven from plant fiber and something metallic that shimmered with each movement. They didn't carry weapons. They didn't appear surprised. At their front was a woman with silver-flecked dark hair, calm eyes, and a presence that made even the air seem to pause. She raised one hand in greeting. "Welcome to Haven," she said in perfect standard Galactic. "We've been expecting you." The crew of the Luminar Crest didn't know it yet, but what they had just found would ripple through every corner of the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. The moment Elira Kent spoke, the forest seemed to breathe with her. There was no fear in her voice, only certainty, like someone greeting old friends after a long journey. The crew of the Luminar Crest exchanged quiet glances. First contact protocols ran through their minds, but nothing in the manuals had prepared them for this. Captain Varel stepped forward. Her 4-fingered hand rose in peace as she spoke through the translator unit. "We come in peace. We followed a signal, one believed to be human in origin." Elira smiled. It was. She turned without another word and began walking back toward the trees. The others followed her without speaking. There was a quiet reverence in the way they moved, as though they walked not on soil, but sacred ground. After a moment's hesitation, Varel nodded to her team, and together they followed the humans into the forest. What they saw next would be described in hundreds of reports, studied by scholars, and debated in council halls across the galaxy. The city of Haven was not built, it had grown. Vast tree structures arched into the sky, their trunks thick as starships, their branches woven with glassy vines that held soft lights glowing like starlight. Walkways were suspended between trees like webs, and strange floating platforms drifted gently from one level to the next. Buildings pulsed with gentle energy, and the air itself seemed fresher, pure, charged with something the ship's sensors couldn't identify. Children played near fountains that ran not with water, but with a translucent liquid that hummed softly. They paused only briefly to look at the newcomers, curiosity shining in their eyes before they returned to their games. Elders watched with quiet pride, some holding glowing books, others tending to machines that appeared grown from the trees themselves. Veryl's science officer, Terran, leaned close to her. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered. "They fused biology with engineering. It's not just sustainable, it's symbiotic." Alira stopped at a large open chamber, its ceiling formed by branches that bent inward like a cathedral. She turned to face them again. "This is Haven, our home, built after the fall of the original colony ship. We were cut off, forgotten, so we adapted." Veryl looked around, struggling to find the words. This level of development should take thousands of years. How did you survive?" "With unity," Alira said, "with memory, and with something your sensors won't detect." She tapped her chest lightly. "Conviction." Before anyone could respond, a new sound filled the air. A low harmonic hum rose from beneath the ground and echoed through the trees. Lights shifted color. The city responded as if sensing the presence of the visitors. "Your arrival was predicted generations ago," Alira said quietly. "But you're early." The alien crew stood speechless as the city of Haven continued to live, breathe, and wait, for what they could only begin to guess. As the sun dipped below the treetops, casting long golden rays through the canopy, the crew of the Luminar Crest were guided deeper into Haven. They passed through gardens filled with crops that shimmered with strange energy and past workshops where humans shaped tools not with brute force, but with gentle precision and intent. Everything here was alive, functional, elegant, and utterly alien in its harmony. Eventually, they arrived at what appeared to be a central archive. It wasn't a structure in the traditional sense. Instead, it was a vast chamber inside the trunk of a massive tree, wider than a starship hangar and carved smooth from within. Vines glowed softly along the walls, illuminating shelves of crystalline tablets, fiber-bound journals, and glowing memory stones. Alira motioned to the crew. "This is where our story is kept. Every generation has added to it. You came seeking a signal. Now we offer the truth." The crew gathered around as she activated a small stone at the chamber center. A projection rose, a flickering recording, old and weathered, showing a human face, eyes tired but resolute. "This is Captain Mara Lynn of the colony ship Odyssey Dawn. We have suffered catastrophic damage. Engines failed. Guidance lost. We are making emergency descent to planet Epsilon 17. We have no contact with Earth. This is not a call for rescue. This is a record for anyone who may find us." The recording ended. The silence in the chamber felt heavy. Alira stepped forward. They didn't survive. The impact site is now a sanctuary, a reminder of how we began. The first settlers used what little they had. They learned from the planet. They studied the pulse of the soil, the rhythm of the weather. And more importantly, they listened. Terran, the science officer, knelt by the glowing stone. "This world should have been barren after the flare. How did you restore it?" "We didn't restore it," Alira said. "We adapted to it. We stopped trying to force Earth's rules on a different world. The planet changed us. It still is." Veryl's voice was cautious. "And the signal? Why now?" Alira looked at her for a long moment. "The signal is always active, but it only reaches those who are ready to hear it." Behind her, another elder spoke for the first time. "You must understand, we are not just humans who survived. We are the result of human belief reshaped by necessity. Over generations, we became something new, not by rejecting the past, but by reimagining it." The crew stood in stunned silence, their understanding of humanity unraveling and reforming in real time. They had expected relics, survivors, perhaps ruins. What they found was a thriving civilization built not on power, but on purpose. And for the first time, they realized this was not a forgotten chapter of human history. This was the beginning of something far more important. The following days in Haven were filled with wonder and quiet amazement. As the crew continued their exploration of the city, it became clear that what they were witnessing wasn't just survival, it was evolution shaped by isolation and ingenuity. Terran, the science officer, had spent the better part of the morning examining the city's energy systems. The more he dug, the more baffled he became. There was no visible power source, no reactors, no fuel cells. Yet the city pulsed with energy, the very trees glowing faintly in a rhythm that seemed to mirror the heartbeat of the land itself. How is this even possible? Terran murmured as he carefully examined a vine-like power conduit running along the side of one of the large trees. There's no sign of external energy generation. This can't just be biological. Alira, overhearing, approached with a smile. It's not magic, if that's what you mean. It's biology, but one adapted over centuries to meet every need. We use the energy of the planet, but in ways your technology couldn't imagine. She gestured to the city around them. These trees, these plants, they aren't just for decoration. They're living biogenerators. They store and release energy like the organs of a larger being. Terran's eyes widened. So, you've integrated biology into your entire infrastructure. Exactly, Illyra said. The Odyssey Dawn settlers knew their survival depended on it. They learned to use the life around them, not just as a resource, but as an ally. They learned that human potential doesn't lie in machines. It lies in understanding the world, adapting to it, and forming bonds with it. As the crew continued to explore, the sheer adaptability of Haven's people became more apparent. Children, no older than 10, were constructing what looked like intricate mechanical tools out of vine and stone. There were no computers, no blueprints, just raw creativity. They seemed to understand intuitively how things worked, fitting pieces together with the precision of trained engineers. One of the children, a girl with bright eyes named Lynn, approached Terran. She held up a small device, no bigger than a fruit, glowing with a faint blue light. "This is a weather modulator," she said, her voice firm, yet childlike. "It helps the crops grow faster even in the dry season. It's powered by the trees." Terran crouched down to inspect it, utterly amazed. "You made this?" She nodded with confidence. "I figured out how the vibrations from the trees could be used to power it. It wasn't hard." Alira watched with quiet pride. Our children grow up learning to think differently. They don't just memorize facts. They learn to connect with the world in ways that go beyond the visible. They know that understanding isn't just about learning. It's about feeling, adapting, and creating. Vero, who had been observing from a distance, spoke up, her voice steady but filled with awe. "You don't just survive here, do you? You thrive." Alira met her gaze. "We don't just live, Captain. We learn to become part of the world around us. It's not just about living through the day. It's about learning to live with the day, to grow with it." It was a revelation. The humans of Haven had long moved beyond traditional technology. They had found ways to make their lives an extension of the planet itself. They weren't just human beings. They were part of the environment, shaped by it, and shaping it in turn. And as the crew looked around, they began to realize just how much this new humanity had to teach the galaxy. The discovery of Haven rippled across the galaxy, quickly drawing the attention of the Galactic Council and a host of other species. News of the long-lost human colony spread like wildfire, sparking debates, curiosity, and above all, a growing sense of unease among the galactic powers. For centuries, humanity had been considered a fledgling species, chaotic, fragile, and struggling to find its place among the stars. But now, these new humans, these ascendants, had completely overturned that perception. The Galactic Council, a coalition of powerful species that oversaw the affairs of the galaxy, convened in an emergency session. Representatives from all corners of the galaxy, from the stoic and calculating Tithari to the warm, empathic Eluri, gathered to discuss what this discovery meant for the future. "Are they a threat?" the Tithari ambassador asked, his voice sharp as the edge of a blade. "These humans have evolved in isolation. Who knows what power they've gained? How can we trust them?" On the other side of the room, the Eluri representative, a delicate, glowing figure named Mirla, spoke softly. They are not the humans we once knew. They have something far more important than power, potential. We would be wise to learn from them, not fear them. Captain Verrell watched the debate unfold from her seat on the Council's viewing platform. She had already sent reports from Haven, detailing the peaceful nature of the human colony and their unique blend of technology and biology. Yet she couldn't help but feel a twinge of concern. The humans of Haven were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered, and not everyone was prepared to accept this new reality. The debate lasted for hours, with no clear resolution. Some factions wanted to visit Haven immediately, hoping to forge an alliance or gain access to the colony's knowledge. Others, however, called for a more cautious approach, suggesting they send a delegation to investigate the humans further before any formal contact. As the session drew to a close, the Council decided on a middle ground. A diplomatic delegation would be sent to Haven, accompanied by a team of scientists and historians, to learn more about the Ascendants and their unique way of life. Back on Haven, Illira had been preparing for their arrival. She was aware that the galaxy's powers would come, but she wasn't afraid. For generations, her people had learned to listen to the rhythms of the universe, and in their hearts, they knew that this moment was inevitable. Humanity's time had come again, but it would be on their own terms. "I've had reports from the galaxy," Illira said to her closest advisors. "They'll come. Some will seek knowledge. Some will seek power. But it doesn't matter what they want. What matters is what we give them." One of her advisors, an elderly man named Aurin, nodded. "We will offer them the same thing we've always offered. Understanding. If they are wise, they will accept it." Illira's gaze was steady, unwavering. "We don't just survive in this galaxy. We have the power to change it." Meanwhile, across the stars, a new idea was beginning to take root. The humans of Haven were not just survivors of a lost colony. They were a new kind of human, one shaped by the unique environment they had lived in, one whose potential had been unlocked by their isolation. And now the galaxy would have to come to terms with what this meant for the future. What had once been considered a fluke, a group of stranded humans, was now being seen as the dawn of a new age. The diplomatic delegation arrived on Haven with the quiet intensity of a storm gathering on the horizon. Unlike the curious explorers before them, this group was made up of galactic leaders, representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy, and high-ranking officers who carried the weight of their government's interests. Their ships landed near the city's outskirts, a quiet hum from their engines breaking the calm of the forest. The moment they stepped onto the soil of Haven, they were greeted by Illira and a group of elders, their faces serene yet resolute. The delegation had come prepared. They had questions, concerns, skepticism. Illira welcomed them with the same composure she had shown the Luminar Crest crew. Her voice when she spoke was firm, but not threatening. "Welcome to Haven. We hope your visit is enlightening." But it wasn't long before the first difficult question came. "Why have you hidden yourselves for so long?" The question came from a stern-faced Sizithari delegate named Varric, his sharp, black eyes glinting with suspicion. "Your people were lost centuries ago. Yet now you emerge with technology that defies explanation, living in harmony with a planet that should have been uninhabitable. Why didn't you reach out sooner?" Illira met his gaze without flinching. "We didn't hide. We adapted. When the Odyssey Dawn crashed here, we were cut off from Earth. At first, we tried to rebuild what was lost. But eventually, we realized our survival wasn't about going back. It was about moving forward. Our ancestors left us a legacy. They gave us hope. But we had to make it our own." Verrill, standing behind the delegation, noted how Illira's words didn't carry anger or defensiveness. Instead, there was an unshakable calm. It was a quality she had seen in few beings, an unwavering certainty that felt more like an invitation than an accusation. Myrla, the Illiri representative, spoke next, her voice softer than Varric's, but filled with quiet authority. "You have no need to justify yourselves, Illira. Your people have done something remarkable. You have created something that transcends technology and power. You've created balance." Alira turned to her. Balance is what we seek. But balance requires a deep understanding of the universe. We have learned that survival alone is not enough. We must grow with our environment, not conquer it. That is the lesson we offer. The Tzithari delegate, however, was not so easily swayed. And yet, we still don't know what you're capable of. You speak of peace and balance, but you've been isolated. What will happen when you share your knowledge with us? Will you allow us to coexist, or will you try to reshape the galaxy in your image? Alira didn't answer immediately. Instead, she glanced around the council of her people, their faces calm yet focused. She was, as always, the voice of the colony, but the unity of Haven was not just in her. It was in the minds of everyone who lived there. Finally, she spoke. We will offer what we know, but we will not force it on anyone. If you want to learn, we will teach. If you want to share, we will listen. We are not here to impose our way. We are here to offer a way, one of understanding, respect, and growth. There was a long silence. The alien delegation, though still cautious, felt the weight of her words. It was a challenge, not to their power, but to their perception of what humanity could become. The fire behind the calm was undeniable. Alira's confidence wasn't rooted in military strength or technological superiority. It was rooted in something far more powerful, the knowledge that true growth came from understanding, not from domination. The days following the diplomatic meeting were filled with more questions than answers. While some delegates were swayed by Alira's calm, others were left with an unsettling feeling they couldn't shake. The humans of Haven had shown them something new, something powerful. Yet it was the unknown that seemed to lurk behind it all. The galaxy had known peace for centuries, but now, with this sudden rise of a new human faction, something began to stir under the surface. The leaders of the delegation gathered in their chambers aboard their respective ships that night, discussing the implications of their visit. Varric, the Tzithari delegate, stood by the viewport, his arms crossed, watching the swirling lights of distant stars. His sharp features were set in a hard line. "I don't trust them," he muttered, voice low but firm. "They may speak of peace, but there is too much power in their hands. They've evolved in isolation, without interference, for hundreds of years. What will happen when they're exposed to the rest of the galaxy? Will they remain peaceful, or will they reshape everything around them?" Myrla, standing across the room, countered calmly. "You fear what you don't understand, Varric. They have shown no desire to conquer. They've offered us a chance to learn. Isn't that worth considering?" Varric turned, his eyes narrowing. "You're too optimistic, Myrla. You believe what you want to believe, but what happens if they can control the forces they've tapped into? If their people have learned to merge with the planet's energy, what's to stop them from using that to dominate? They've already changed themselves beyond recognition. How long before they seek to change us?" The room grew heavy with silence, the weight of his words settling over the group. The threat wasn't a physical one, not yet, but it was real. If the humans of Haven possessed the ability to alter the fabric of life itself, the galaxy would have no choice but to confront them. On the surface of Haven, Alira sensed the unease before the galaxy's delegates fully realized it. As she walked through the vast halls of the Great Grove, the pulse of the land beneath her feet seemed to whisper to her, warning her of the tension that had begun to rise. She knew the coming days would not be easy. The delegation had come for answers, but what they had found was more than they could process. Haven wasn't just a colony, it was a statement. It was humanity's new beginning, a beginning that would be judged by every other species in the galaxy. Alira stopped in front of the great crystalline tree in the center of Haven, her hands resting gently on its smooth surface. The tree had been there since the earliest days of settlement, its branches reaching high into the sky, its roots dug deep into the soil. Her heart beat in time with the pulsing energy that flowed through the city, but even she couldn't shake the growing sense that something was shifting in the stars. The galaxy would come for them, one way or another. Some would seek peace, others would seek power. And some would want to destroy them before they could change the galaxy irrevocably. "We cannot wait for them to make the first move," Alira whispered to the tree as though it could hear her. "We must prepare, quietly but resolutely." The ascendants of Haven had learned much from their past. They were no longer the weak, scattered humans lost in the cosmos. They had become something else, something far greater, and yet still fragile. And now, the fate of the galaxy rested on whether or not the rest of the universe could accept their transformation, or if it would seek to tear them down before they could show what humanity could truly become. The days turned into weeks, and the tension across the galaxy grew palpable. News of Haven's existence had spread, and whispers filled every corner of the galaxy, speculation about what humanity had become, and fear of what they might do next. Every species in the Council, from the calculating Tsithori to the empathetic Illyri, struggled with the same question. What did the rise of the Ascendants mean for the future of the galaxy? The diplomatic delegation, once an experiment in peace, had become a critical turning point. Illyra and her people knew their moment had arrived. The rest of the galaxy would either accept them or seek to destroy them before they could become a force too powerful to control. It was Veril who broke the silence one evening as the crew gathered in their quarters aboard the Luminar Crest. She stood by the viewport, gazing at the planet below, Haven, so peaceful and vibrant, yet on the cusp of something far more dangerous. "We've been part of the galaxy's peace for centuries," Veril said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "Now it feels as though we're on the brink of something uncertain." Terran, the science officer, glanced up from his datapad. "I've been analyzing their technology, their symbiosis with the planet's energy. If they were to share it with the galaxy, it could change everything. They could eliminate energy crises, stabilize ecosystems, cure diseases. They could build entire worlds, not from machines, but from living, breathing matter." "Exactly," Veril said. "And that's the problem. This could shift the balance of power. The galaxy is built on order control. If Haven becomes a beacon for this new form of existence, some will embrace it. Others will fear it." "Fear always comes with change," Terran replied quietly. "But change is inevitable. Haven's people have already transcended what we thought was possible. They've learned to live with the universe, not just in it." A sharp beeping interrupted the conversation. Veril moved swiftly to the console, reading the incoming message with a furrowed brow. "The Council is demanding an answer. The galactic powers are split. Some wish to send a peace envoy. Others want to deploy a military force to neutralize Haven before it becomes too powerful." The room fell silent, the weight of the situation sinking in. On one side, there was peace, a chance to learn from Haven, to embrace this new vision of humanity. On the other, war, a fight to protect the old ways, to prevent the galaxy from shifting too drastically. Meanwhile, on Haven, Illyra stood before the great tree once more. The decision would soon be made. Her people had done all they could, extended their hand to the galaxy, offered peace, shared their knowledge. But they were not naive. They knew there would be those who would not accept what they had become. "There's no turning back now," Illyra said to the Council of Elders. "We've given them the chance to join us. If they choose war, we will defend Haven, but we won't fight for domination. We will fight to preserve what we've built, what we believe humanity can become." The air around them seemed to hum with energy. The city, alive in its biological beauty, felt like it was waiting for something. Far across the stars, a choice was being made. Would the galaxy accept the ascendance of Haven, or would they resist the inevitable transformation, choosing war over change? The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath.